Coming to you live, it's the AutoHub show with Ian and Jeff. Here we go.
Who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Hi, I'm Gail Rubenstein, the founder and CEO of a company called Retail Resilient, social selling for the car industry. And we help auto dealers, auto agencies, and vendors in the auto industry sell more cars, service more cars, and make more money using our social selling strategy. That includes TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and anything else you can think of. So if you're looking to invest thousands and make millions, we're definitely the social selling company for you. Like I said, who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks?
I was at Larry Foman's seminar. So happy I came, having such a good time. Thank you so much, Larry.
One of the best trainers in this area for sure. I don't know about anywhere else, but as far as I know, he's the best. So,
told you twice.
Take advantage.
Thank you for having me here.
I'm at Larry Feldman's seminar, and what I found is that what he's really good at doing with his knowledge and with his training, he's not filling a bucket, he's lighting a fire.
Ways to improve. Every month we want to improve better on what we did the month before, maybe the year before. It's about how fast we can get the cars done with quality work to get it to the front line, because that's where we make our money. And the bottom line is the longer it takes, the more money you spend. We want to get it down as low as possible. Right now, like I said, we're in a great stage. We're at 4.5 days. In recon, we want to know how quickly we can get the cars out of the recon process and to the front line. The average days in recon and then the time to line are the most important things that we look for. I'm Mike Burrell. I'm Service Director at JM Lexus.
So there's a few books. If you haven't read The Future of Automotive Retail, highly recommend, but there's a few others that I thought were interesting. Google Analytics 4 by George Nenny, Car Dealer's Guide, Retail Recovery by Mark Pickington, and Future Ready Retail. Disclaimer, Jeff.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks. Welcome to our first show of 2023. As always, we do have a little bit of a disclaimer. It kind of leads into our discussion earlier with George just before we went live. But the views and opinions shared today by our guests are those of them, not necessarily that of the AutoHub show or Ian Endicott or Jeff Polo. But what the heck? Let's see what happens.
The show is obviously 2023 prediction show. And as Jeff requested, we have a new slide, which is on the top 10 predictions for 2023 from Cox Automotive. If you are interested in this slide or you don't have it, let me know. I'm definitely happy to email it to you. These are the top 10, which are slow growing economy, new vehicle inventory levels, total retail value sales of electric vehicles will surpass 1 million. Used vehicle values will see above normal depreciation, which we already know is happening. Vehicle affordability, all cash deals will increase. And then dealership service revenues climb. Half vehicle buyers will engage with digital retailing tools. I'm not sure if that's interesting for sure. And then federal incentives in the U.S. as we look at the Inflation Reduction Act, specifically around electric vehicles, which I believe everyone's talked to at scale, whether it be new or used. So go ahead, Jeff.
Well, that's interesting projections. There's a lot of negative predictions going on here for 2023, and I have to say that I believe our first guest I'll introduce made a post the other day about the negativity out there and choosing not to be negative and just trying to plod through to make some business. So our first guest that I was going to introduce has actually disappeared off. So he's back. As I introduce our guests, I would like you to introduce yourself and then complete this statement. In 2023, I predict the retail auto industry will. And first of all, it's David Long from Hansel Auto Group in very rainy Northern California, something they're not used to. But David, say hi, and you're not a stranger to many people, but tell us what you think that's going to happen in 2023 in the retail auto industry.
Good morning, everyone. Love the group we have assembled here today. I know just about everybody and have tremendous respect for this panel. So 2023 will be exactly what we make it. And one of the things that I said the other day on social media was, are you recession proving or are you recession proofing? And here's what I mean by that, and then I'll release the mic. I see so many people proving to themselves and to their owners and to the people that they work with that the recession is upon us, spending all this time, energy, and brain power to establish that things are going to be rough. Well, I would say if we put that much energy, effort, and brain power into future proofing our industry and getting back to the basics, I believe 2023 will be as good as we make it. I mean, what? The other dealers, the competitors, the people in our market areas, they're all talking about interest rates being up, gas prices being up, the politics. They're just spending so much time and focus and energy on the things that don't move our business forward that I believe 2023 will be for the ones that focus on basics and future proofing and not recession proving. And that's where I see us going in 2023 as a company in my business. And that's all I got, fellas. That's my thought.
Well, thank you very much. That's very good. You know, it's something very interesting. I've always believed that the slow business is created by one person talking to another and saying, how's business? And they go, oh, it's slow. And they go, oh man, that's good because I'm slow too. And then, they'll tell two friends and they'll tell two friends. Next, we have a new guest to the show, joining us from the land of sunshine and warmth, except for probably 22 minutes every day. George Berridge. George, introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself, your company, where you're located, and your prediction for 2023 in the retail automotive industry.
It's George Berridge, living a wonderful ranch in north of Tampa in Florida, enjoying the beautiful weather. Reason why we live here is because of the winters, not because of the summers. And, today, the 74 degree temperatures in the middle of the day are the temperatures that I live for. But been in the automotive space from, lot porter to general manager to director of 7 stores to worked for launch of Kelley Blue Book and wrote Internet 101 for cars.com in 1997, I think it was. But been around the business for 40 plus years. Other than when I was a kid, and I was actually in a car dealership starting at 12 years old. But what I see in the future of 2023 is perfectly following what David said, and that's the U word. That's been what I told somebody this morning at 7:30 meeting was the U word, and the U word is uncertainty. And I think the uncertainty of consumers, the uncertainty of inventory, the uncertainty, everything that just multiplies with uncertainty. And as David stated, the biggest thing you can do is make sure you know what your brand is, make sure you know what your employees know what your brand is, make sure your USPs are accurate, and make sure you assist the customer. I mean, and I talked about it briefly about the Carvana effect, but dealers need to look at what consumers want rather than what they want. There's no longer customers walking in the door and, following it and paying $10,000 grosses on cars because you're going to have inventory this year. And knowing that, you need to make sure your staff hasn't gotten lazy. I talked to a dealer the other day that told me his staff doesn't want to take it up if it's somebody not wanting to pay $5,000 over sticker. They've gotten lazy. They can sell 6-7 cars and make 150 grand a year. That's changing in 2023. Right now, Stellantis has 90 days worth of inventory. They need to start selling cars to keep their workers and shops going, and the inventory is coming. So I think the big U word that I'm going to talk about, and it's great. David's talking about not paying attention to the negatives. When I ran dealerships, I wouldn't allow us to watch the news. And if you don't watch the news, it can't be bad. I think you need to train your staff and get yourself moving forward because it's all about, who you're selling in the market. It doesn't matter if you're selling 1,000 cars in your market or 500 cars in your market. What is your market share? And I think that's what dealers need to pay attention to is how well they can take care of their customers and grow their market share. Even if the piece of the pie is going to be bigger, you're going to sell less inventory.
Yeah.
That's it.
Tremendous points. It's almost overnight that as you drive by dealerships, all of a sudden you're seeing cars.
Yeah, I went. Kia store I went by was pretty amazing. 3 months ago, they had 5 cars, and it was one of the big stores that had 24 acres of empty lot. And now all of a sudden you see in the truck starting to dump them off.
Yeah, it's really something. The ads on TV are 0%, 25% off, et cetera, et cetera. And our next guest actually is going to be dealing more than a lot of us with the fallout of some of these people that are selling 7 cars a month and making 150 grand a year. And all of a sudden somebody's going to be talking to them about performance, et cetera. Plus the related, probably more importantly, the emotional trouble it's going to be. And that's Sandy Zannino from, I'm actually doing this counterclockwise through the continent, from Florida, I believe. Oh gosh, Sandy, just introduce yourself. Tell us where you are and tell us your prediction, please.
Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be here, and Happy New Year to everyone. Happy Merry Everything is my new, I've been saying that for a couple of years now. It covers it all. And I'm in Sarasota, Florida, so right down the road from George, I think. So and who I am, I'm blessed. Like David, I've pretty much met almost everybody on the call, which is really a lot of fun. And I hope I get to see y'all in a couple of weeks. I am the retail automotive human resources expert in our industry, and I also have been known as the profit protector as well, so which has to do with compliance. So for my predictions, right, I actually have 2. I think that in 2023, retail automotive is going to get a new pair of glasses and begin to realize that this thing that we always do when we're recruiting, looking for a good fit, is not the way that we are going to attract and retain new talent. The facts are the facts. And even though there are some people coming into the workforce, it's not enough to make up the shortfall that we have. Because the labor shortage is just numbers, right? We don't have enough working age people. Right now it's about a half of a person for every job opening in the United States. Like we can't grow these. So, and the other piece of that puzzle for me is that 64% of our workforce in 2025, which is like right around the corner, will be millennial and Gen Z. So the reason why I say a new pair of glasses, I know, look, Jeff is like, what? What do you say? So, I feel like our old way of thinking, we need to take off the glasses and put on a new pair and begin to look at how we are going to fit the workforce, right? I mean, I guess you can keep, you can keep employing boomers and Gen Xers forever, but if you want some new talent, you're going to learn about generations. So that's my other prediction. The other one is I think, and I hope, I pray, so it's really a hope that dealers will begin to regularly, as part of onboarding for new managers, continuing education for managers, do short trainings to protect the profits, right? From the very beginning, to know what questions they can and cannot ask. Anyway, so that is my prediction, and that's enough out of me for now.
Perfect. Thank you, Sandy. I like the comment about the new pair of glasses, and actually, I might upset somebody, but you see, we've got half a person per job. I think a lot of the jobs have a half a person in them anyways, just because we're hiring anybody. Now, I'm just moving slightly up the road from Sandy and George, about, about 1,500 miles, is Shawn Armorer from La Belle Provence, Quebec, Canada, Montreal, who is our good friend and part of the Great Larry Love Fest that happened here last month. But Shawn, please introduce yourself and give us your prediction for 2023.
Yeah, well, like everybody else, great to be here. This is a really variously developed panel. That's what I find so interesting and ironic as well. So Shawn Armorer, going on the business now 21 years. I am the owner and founder of BDC Alchemy. Essentially, we assist dealerships in building revenue-generating BDCs. With regards to 2023, hopefully Moving forward, the prediction I would have, there's a couple of them. First of all, similar to what David said and George, I believe that the auto industry is going to continue to go through this stress test. I think all levels of the dealership will continue to be challenged, from onboarding, hiring, like Sandy said, down to training and coaching and hiring process and what have you. Processes as well. Technology too is absolutely going to blow up this year with this whole chat GPT thing, the AI that's coming in. But, to remain optimistic, similar to what David was saying, you're going to get what you repeat. And I think the people that are going to be able to kind of, take the next step are not going to be people that are going to be anchored. They're going to accept the fact, first and foremost, that, we're not going back to the norm. This is the new norm. As a matter of fact, the new norm is changing every 6 months, maybe even every 3 months, right? So I think moving forward, you are what you repeat, and the ones that will succeed won't be anchored, and they're going to be taking more chances, if you will, or trying new things or what have you. But one of the biggest things that I'm going to predict is we're finally going to see, because it's cyclical, that I believe, but we're finally going to see a balance between the consumer and the dealer with regards to pricing and where they find themselves. I don't necessarily feel that one will have the advantage over the other. So it's going to be quite interesting, I could tell you that.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a very good point. And we're going to see a lot of people that look like deer in the headlights, I think, and people who are used to the way it was. And the industry certainly has turnover, and it always has, but you're going to have people that are used to getting whatever, sort of sitting back and in between coffee and sitting playing Candy Crush on their phone, they can make $1,000 deal, are going to be a little shocked when somebody comes in and says, okay, thank you, I'll be back. And they won't know how to handle it. Moving along, thank you, everybody. Great point. We'll go on to Ian, who's got another challenging question for you. Ian.
Yeah. What challenge or challenges from 2022 will change in 2023? And it's actually interesting that everybody was talking about different things. I actually did a poll on LinkedIn about the top 4 things for 2023, and one of them was high interest rates. That was one of the big things, which I thought was interesting. But I'll leave it up to, let's start with David this time. If he's on video, if not, we can go elsewhere.
Well, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't know that I
no problem.
fully understand.
Don't drive and hit things.
I don't know that I fully understand the question.
Okay.
About interest rates?
No, just what do you think in terms of challenges from 2022 will change in 2023? The reason I brought up interest rates is that's one that I think everybody's dealing with. So that was the one from a poll, was the number one that people reacted to on LinkedIn when I did a poll on this question.
Got it. I will say that the interest rates don't alarm me. Here's why. If dealers were selling cars for $5,000 over, it takes more than 2 or 3% to offset, right? $10,000 over. So I think it's a 6 1/2 dozen in the other situation. I believe that it's how we frame it for our internal team, especially a guy like me that entered the business when interest rates were 19%. Right? I think this interest rate doesn't have to slow us down. Where it slows us down is when a salesperson, sales manager, GM are like, oh, woe is me, the sky's falling. Interest rates have gone all the way up to 4 or 5%. Well, what happened when we were selling cars for $5,000 over? We had a line of people begging to pay it. Nothing. But your frame of mind was that everybody was going to pay it, so let's just keep selling them like that. Not that we did that in my environment, but I just know that in our industry, dealers were getting all they could and not thinking twice about it. And the minute interest rates went up, dealers started this self-fulfilling prophecy of, that's going to slow us down. Things are going to get awful now, which just is not true. So I really believe the narrative that we create inside the stores is the biggest challenge that we're faced with. And that's my 2 cents. Probably the same narrative I'll have the whole show. Stop stinking thinking.
Let's go with Sandy on this one. I'm curious. Go ahead.
You're curious. So
I'm curious as to what your thought is. Completely different, I'm sure.
I think that one of the challenges that we've seen in 2022, 2021, moved into 2022 is embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what that really means, right? I think which is another thing that I do actually. I'm a consultant for DEI, right? So, and I really think that it should be inclusion, diversity, and equity, because inclusion must come first. And really, I think that is a challenge. And the way that I think that it's going to change is that I think that dealers, at least I hope that, again, most of my things are hopeful, right? These are the things that I hope and I hope that dealers recognize that this is the way that our industry will thrive into the future. Our industry will survive, right? Like I've been around since 1998, and I've seen all the things that happened since 1998, right? And we survive. We are an industry of scrappers, and no matter what the world throws at us, it's still going to be okay. And I hope that we start to recognize that the good sometimes is the enemy of the best. It's easy to do good, right? We make enough, but if we want to be the best, I mean, just thinking about and for me, that comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. They'll be budgeting for it, and actual movement, right? Like between women, that needle hasn't moved, right? I hope we stop saying we're making strides, because we're not. We make little baby steps, right? Like redefine what a stride means, I guess, is sometimes what we need to do. So that is my the challenge that I think will change, or actually won't change. It's going to continue, but I think it's going to change because in that dealers begin to embrace it, really embrace it. So.
We saw a
Hey,
lot of
guys,
change. Yeah.
Ian, would you mind if I jumped in
Yeah,
for
go
a
ahead.
quick second?
Yeah.
And by the way, Sandy, keep in mind, people like me make people like you possible, because I'm a human resources nightmare. So perception is reality. I love to tell stories when I'm doing my training about people who come up to me and say, "Man, it's really slow today, isn't it?" And I'd say, "I'm too busy to talk about how slow it is. Why don't you come back? I don't know when, a couple hours." Not one of these imbeciles ever walked away and said, "If this lunatic with his funny pie can make a living, why can't I?" We've lived through cash for clunkers. We've lived through people going into manufacturers and going into dealers and saying, "We're taking your franchise away. You didn't do anything wrong with just restructuring." The people that come in with a good attitude and the right energy will survive, because they're like it was said, don't watch the news, don't do this, don't do that. The most important thing is the mindset that you're putting out from the inside out. If you go in with the right attitude, if you know what the heck you're trying to accomplish, you're not going to let anybody stop you anyway. At least I think so. So I honestly think 2023 will be just fine. The people that are on top of the game will move forward. The people that won't will struggle. And since my business is training and recruiting, I'm licking my chops, because there's plenty of people that got sloppy and got lazy. So that's great. And everybody needs people, and I could find them. I will mute now.
Thanks, Larry. George, what do you think?
I'm going to circle back to what Larry just kind of said. I think the biggest struggle this year will be staffing. Just several reasons. I mean, I talked to a salesman this morning that was telling me he's thinking about leaving the business, although he made almost $200,000 last year, because he's been told it's going to get tougher, and he's no way he's going to be able to tell his wife he can work 60 hours a week and make $100,000 a year. It was kind of an interesting conversation. I'm like, well, what's changing? And he started telling me all the negatives, and so I think staffing is the biggest thing that's going to harm the dealers. Now, obviously, there's the dealers that get up every morning and they're ready to rock and roll, and they train and consult and build their team. But there's a lot of guys out there that still hand their guy a plate and say, "Go sell cars for me." And it's been pretty easy the last few years. And the guys have just, staffing is getting lazy. The fact that there's no employees to, I kind of keep an eye on my dealer this morning, how he has staff to wash cars, because there's a Hobby Lobby near me that starts you out at $18.50 an hour plus full benefits, and they'll pay for college. To me, it's hard to get a guy to change oil and wash cars for, that kind of money all of a sudden. So I think staffing, training, and I think, being prepared for the changes is going to be the biggest thing and biggest challenge. And like Larry said, he's going to lick his chops because a lot of people are going to need him. And the guys that aren't going to need him are going to continue to have success, but it all just keeps rolling down the same path.
Thanks for that. Shawn, last but not least on this question.
Yeah, I'm going to follow the panel. It's about people. It's always about people. It always has been since the start of time. I'm going to go with the challenges of the workforce. What's funny to me is, like, prior to COVID, we were like fully stocked, ready to go. And then after COVID, it's like, where did these people go? Like, I'm really struggling. Where the hell did everybody go, right? So everywhere that I go, there's lineups. You go to Costco or you'll go to Starbucks. It's a disaster. I'm just really wondering where the hell people went. Like, so it would be workforce. And for the current people right now that are working from home, so I'm a little bit biased with BDC, so I'll just stick to BDC, if you will. But with regards to that, I'm not at all for this work from home type of system. I think it happened way too fast, and nobody really thought out carefully about the psychological ramifications of being, working in a dealership for the last 10 years, and then overnight, hey, you're working from home for the next 2 or 3 years. And I just basically feel that, we were biologically created to work and hunt in packs. Like Homo sapiens' greatest accomplishments required interdependence. And I just think that moving forward, if we are going to get through this, we're going to get through this collectively. And, we're slowly seeing people coming back to our industry. A lot of people are leaving. And I just feel that in order for people to do business with us, we first have to make it sexy to work for us. And we're just missing that sexy factor at the dealership. Like, how are we competing against the Googles, and how are we competing against all these other, new age companies? So I feel as if we absolutely need to focus on all aspects of attracting and retaining top talent.
Thanks for that. Jeff?
Well, okay, so Shawn, I have to tell you, I am taking from you to compete against the Googles of the world that dealerships should dump the sushi restaurants and the hairstylists and put in ping pong tables and shuffleboard, etc., for their staff. So, just kidding. Moving right along. So we're all talking the same way that, we're hearing this giant thing that when right after New Year's, we heard a dum 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 through the world. And, everybody's hearing it as a response, how we behaved for the last 3 years, hence George's comment about the guy that made 200 grand that last year sitting there playing Candy Crush. He didn't say, I said Candy Crush. And that had to explain to his wife that he might have to actually work. What other serious reckonings are going to happen in 2023 for dealers? Not necessarily the staff that are lonely, like Shawn said, or somebody that's this new generation that might be a little bit more sensitive to things, but for the dealers as a whole. And Shawn, I'm going to go back to you because we've called on you last each time so far, so now first. So what do you think? What's the big reckoning?
That's an interesting question. It's anyone's guess, really. I can't really remember a time that there's not only been so much volatility in our industry, but so rapid, so quick. Like similar to Sandy. Well, she was in '98, I believe she said. I've been in the industry since '02, so I went through various different situations of volatility, but this one is just so fast. So with respects to the reckoning, I think similar to take a word from what Sandy said, I think we have to look at this thing with a different pair of lens, with a new type of lens. And we need to slowly and methodically, of course, but we need to look at things and see where we can improve, and in some areas completely change it. Because one thing is for certain, it's going really, really fast. And I don't think that 200,000 moving forward is going to be something that's going to be something realistic or even sustainable.
Yep. Well, that's actually a very good point. It's very funny. Something that concerns me from the dealer side is as we are progressing our dealership leadership away from people that have been there a few times and have been through it. David mentioned, he got into the business when it was 19.9% finance, yet I'll guarantee that David's dealership was selling cars. And this challenge that worries me is that you got people that have been in this business for 15 years, moving into leadership positions. And the last 15 years, if we take a look, let's go 14 years because after 2008 or whatever, it's been really good. And you don't have to be really good to sell cars. You just happen to be, almost lucky. And yes, luck is created, not made. But so the next prediction, or not prediction, but the reckoning, I'm going to go reverse, go back to Sandy now, because we're talking people and dealers, Sandy.
So this question, well, first, before I answer this, I do want to respond a little bit to what Shawn was talking about with wondering where did the people go, right? Like after all the big layoffs. So prior to the pandemic, I was scheduled for Digital Dealer to present at Digital Dealer. And I was talking about the labor shortage, because the labor shortage is nothing new, right? Like those of us in HR who stay connected to that, I've known for like 10 years, been telling my dealers, get ready for this, because in 2024, we're not going to have enough people, right? There's just not going to be enough people. So I'm still talking about it, right? I was talking about it before the pandemic, and I'm still talking about it. So this question about what, how dealers behaved and how, I can answer that actually more from a consumer place, right? So I remember in the pandemic, I was in a Zoom similar to this, and I was listening to people talk about all the money that, the 10,000 and this and that. And I'm sitting there at this point, I had a broken foot, my car, I knew that I was going to have to buy a new car. And, for a lot of people, a car is a necessity, right? Like I need a car in order to go to the grocery store, right? Like it's not down the street. So the way I was looking at it, and I think that might be a consequence, right? If what I said in that meeting was, you know what, I got to buy a new car as soon as I can drive again after my foot heals. And if I go to the dealer where I have purchased a car since like 1994, every time I get a new car, it's at that dealer. So I'm a loyal customer. And if I go there and they tell me that the car that I want to buy is 10,000 over sticker price, I'm going somewhere else, and I'm not coming back. My loyalty will be, so. I look at it from that way, and if you know me, I'm always thinking about those who have less, and those are the people that I think about. And because I'm one of them, I'm not somebody who has like a ton. Things are a necessity for me, right? So that is a consequence that I hope more dealers behaved in the way that Hansel Automotive Group behaved and didn't do all of those things. So.
Hey, can I touch base with something with loyalty?
Larry likes coming in behind what
I sure do. I sure do, Sandy. Listen, you're talking about Hansel, and I've had the pleasure of becoming friendly with David Long and doing a lot of business for his company. The key to what we're all talking about is a page we can take from David Long. Every Wednesday, David Long has a big Zoom call with all his employees, and occasionally a nut like me is involved too. He knows his employees by name. They announce birthdays. It's very expensive. I'm not complaining. It's very expensive to bring in a Larry Feldman. It's expensive to replace people. The cost to replace people is crazy. Training can be expensive because it's obviously got to be ongoing. the best way to move forward in any business, particularly ours, is to keep your people. So again, it's the old thing, right? If you really want to be smart, take care of your employees, and your employees will take care of your customers. So I think if we can really dig in with making our people feel part of something, which will solve what Shawn was saying, and what Cindy was saying, and with George. George, I'm a musician, so I think you need to give this. He's probably a young guy. Give him a copy of Joni Mitchell's "A Big Yellow Taxi" to the line. You don't know what you got till it's gone. Because when he wakes up one day and realizes he's not working for a guy like you look pretty cool, and he doesn't have the same opportunity, what other business do you have where you control your own income, where you're running your business and somebody else's with no debt service? So I think it's a matter of not just beating them up, but hugging them, making them feel part of something and get involved. And the other problem, Shawn, of course, is there's never been a better time to disseminate information, and yet we've never been worse at communicating with each other. So the big disconnect doesn't really shock me, since if you call me for a job, I answer in about 3 seconds, and nobody answers their damn phone.
Yeah, that's some. Thanks, Larry. Always appreciate you kind of hit things right on the head here. One thing I'm going to turn to George here now, but one thing I think is going to be a big reckoning. Sandy touched on it. George touched on it earlier. Is all these people, all these dealers that are like, yeah, you know what? I don't need cars. I don't need to advertise. I don't need to worry about my people, because why are they going to leave when they're making $200,000 a year for, and I can't tell them to work late because they're going to say I'm going to leave and I don't have enough people. So that'll be a big reckoning. But George, so what do you think for the dealer reckoning side of things? What's something you think?
I think, going back to what you said, which was, you said the word luck, and it made me think of what I used to always tell my kids back in the day when, my kids wrestled from the age of 4 till they went to college and wrestled. But people would say, "Oh, your son got lucky. I seen him throw that," and I was always, I'd always tell my kids that luck is what happens when you prepare to meet an opportunity. The opportunity was the wrestler they were getting ready to wrestle that following weekend, and we prepared. And my youngest son was an incredible wrestler. My oldest son was an incredible wrestler, but I always pushed them to obtain that. I think luck in the car business is leaving them, because a lot of the dealerships haven't prepared to meet the opportunity, which is the consumer. And by not preparing, they haven't advertised, they haven't trained their staff, they haven't prepared their staff, they haven't looked at turnover. Just preparing and getting ready and making sure that the consumer knows. Jump back on that Carvana thing again. Carvana screamed for 3 years, while dealerships I'd walk into and say, "Oh, we don't need to advertise. We're selling all the cars on our lot." And you look at him and say, I know a young man who's 25 years old who bought a used BMW from Carvana, and I asked him what kind of warranty it had, and it didn't have a warranty. It had a 4-month, 44,000 mile warranty or something like that. And I go, if you'd have went to a BMW dealership, you could have bought a certified BMW that has a 100,000 mile warranty. And he goes, "Well, I didn't know the dealership sold used cars." And you just always have to remember, you have to make sure every customer out there that could buy your car needs to know who you are, what you stand for, and how you're going to make it easy for them. I always look at the Burger King concept of advertising in the 70s, and I've looked at trying to buy that, have it your way. And that's what dealerships need to become, that have it your way. When I come in to buy a car, when I come in for service, it's have it my way. Because it has to be easier for the consumer, and that's by your preparation will make you be lucky.
No, that's very true. And last but not least, I'm going to turn to the dealer on the call, because you know something, all of us that are kind of on the fringe, we'll call it ex-dealers, we help dealers, etc. We don't live that every day. So David, if you're there, tell us your opinion. What's the big reckoning? Because I know for you guys, you're perfect. So you've got everything done right. But what about others?
So you got the memo, huh?
Yep, I got the memo.
We do. Okay. Well, I'm going to really upset some people, not just here, but this year. And I'm not going to do it on purpose. But the big three, the three things that will impact a dealer more than anything. And if you want to sustain your business, and I don't mean sustain the level of profits we've had in the past, but there's three things that most dealers and most dealer groups have taken their eye off of. one is personnel expense, because it's been raining money on the stupid for so long. People have been able to do things that they never had to pay attention to, right? Just keep adding personnel, layers and layers, assistants for assistants on the assistants. Let people come and work for you and not perform. Like, those are the things that have been allowed to happen while money was raining down on people that weren't really paying attention. That's the first thing, personnel expense. The second thing, advertising expense. Maybe you weren't advertising, but I can guarantee you most dealers weren't paying attention to advertising as a percentage of gross or advertising per vehicle retailed, meaning they were just advertising for the sake of advertising. The third most impactful one that's going to have probably a 7-figure swing in my particular business, the floor plan expense. So as I piss off the manufacturer and say no to allocation, which they've not heard for a long time, right? What do you mean? What do you mean you don't want every single car we're building, which is happening, right? I'm like, no, we'll just have these. No, you got to take them. No, I'm not taking them all. I want these ones. These ones sell in 12 days or less. They have the best margins. I don't want that color. I don't want this equipment package. I don't want that model. Manufacturers aren't used to hearing that. I'm pissing people off right now. The second thing is when an associate has been able to punch in, punch out, and not be held accountable to perform. We've been marginalizing mediocre performance because we've been so profitable. And then the third one is the advertising expense. So when those three things get really tightened down, people are going to be like, what's going on around here? How come we're not saying yes to everything? How come I can't watch cat videos all day and get hugged when I go home at night? Like, it's going to be a different world. And that's the reckoning that people that are really looking, well, I want it to be fair for everyone. I should be able to come late and leave early like the guy that's selling or gal that's selling 30 cars a month. No, it's not like that. You got to pay for your office. If you don't pay $25,000, you can't have that seat in that cubicle. Yeah, you might have lost me, but those are the things that are the reckoning that will really wake people up. Unfortunately, most people wake up after it's too late, and then they have to be reactive versus proactive, and then it's just a crap show after that.
Wow.
Well, you've got some very good points. Actually, I think we've got a lot of reckonings that's going to come up because it's not just from one point. It's staffing, it's expenses, because boy, oh boy, that floor planning and that advertising, which has been all but zero. In fact, so many dealers have made a lot of money in floor plan credits. All of a sudden, that's all going to change dramatically. Ian.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really, really impactful. And the surprising thing, and this may seem a little shocking, as David said, is dealers may not even know what cars they should order. They were just ordering, right? Because they had orders. So I think the other thing that is going to be interesting is how many of those factory orders might have went sideways while they weren't paying attention. You know,
mean a yellow Kia Rio manual transmission is not a big seller?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at
most dealers aren't even ordering. They're just showing up. Like, the manufacturer send you here's the cars you're going to get. Most dealers just say, okay, thanks. I'll have them. I'll sell them. No problem. And that day is over, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, to not understand what sells and what you should buy is one problem, but especially to your point, David, when it's at 11% or 10%, whatever the number is, that's a lot different than having no inventory and getting credits, to Jeff's point. But George, what do you think dealers can do to protect themselves or deflect these threats? What do you think?
Well, I mean, you look back to the deflection of it. I mean, it's going to be the guys the Davids out there that have done their job and tasks and built their team, and not just let the guys play video games on their phones while they just sit there. I mean, I was at a CDJR store 2 weeks ago, and I looked out and there were 8 salespeople and they were all on their phones. And I looked over to the GM and says, hey, are they texting their customers? And he goes, I don't know what they're doing. I go, I know what they're doing. They're on Facebook, they're on this, they're on that. They've forgotten the little steps that are going to become the big steps. If they need to ask. I walk into stores and the GM say, oh, I know how to advertise. I know how to do this. My agency takes care of me, which is one of the biggest myths, especially the bigger ad agencies that, I worked at Zimmerman Advertising for years. And, you have a lot of great people that walk in the front door and sell you advertising and say, hey, you should, be with us because we're the biggest agency out there. But making sure you take note of what they're doing, paying attention to every advertising dollar and what really value you get out of that advertising dollar, and just being smarter. And I agreed with everything that came out of David's mouth about paying attention to every penny you spend. Not saying you got to advertise, you got to build your brand, but these dealers, some of them are still yelling, hey, we're having a contest this month between our two stores, whichever one sells the most. Consumers don't care. One store's a Toyota store, one store's a Honda store. I'm not going to buy either, or whatever the case may be. You got to be smarter on what you're doing. And you need to ask for help on certain things. And there's a lot of quality people out there that understand the industry and can help you. Do what you do best and make sure your sales staff know what they need to do to be their best. Train them up, train your staff up, train your lot porters up. I remember when I was in the car business, I had a lot porter who worked for me, Johnny King. And Johnny King worked at me at 9 different dealerships in the course of a decade because he always wanted to he would stay where he was at and come over a week later and say, Mr. Berridge, I need to work for you again. So if you can build those kind of loyal staff, but for lot porters, you need to build that for everybody. You need to make sure everybody, when you walk in the door on Monday morning, is happy to be there. And if they're not happy to be there, you need to figure out how to coach them up. And if that includes coaching up their spouse and, on making them understand why they're there, then so be it. You got to be on hands and you got to keep building your team. And the reckoning will happen if you don't.
Understand. So, David, you obviously have the top 3 things. How are you holding your people accountable for that? I mean, that's clearly, your hit list. Maybe you can comment on that.
You call on me, David. Did you unmute?
What's that?
Yeah. How are you holding your team accountable to that? Yeah, like you're obviously deflecting those threats, but how are you holding them accountable to do that?
So, as it relates from the team perspective, I think it's just a really simple keep score. Right? How do you keep score? But more importantly, how do you deliver what the score is to your team? So I break every day down into what I call an ROT, which is return on time. And it has 3 periods, and each period has X amount of hours. Just like if you were a service manager, if you had 10 technicians working for 8 hours, clocked in for 8 hours, you'd want 80 hours worth of production. Well, the most expensive resource we have in all of our dealerships is unapplied sales time. So think about this. If you have your day broken down in 3 periods, 9 to 12, 12 to 3, 3 to 6, and you have 10 salespeople, that first period has 30 hours worth of available time. If you're not keeping score for that 30 hours and you have no earthly idea, like that Chrysler dealer, I don't know what they're doing on their phone. Well, here's what I know. I know at 12 o'clock exactly how many phone calls, text messages, emails, and videos were done in that 30 hours. Right? 9 to 12 is 3 hours. 9 to 12 is 30 hours. And if I want to run my business efficiently, I need to know what I'm getting for my 30 hours worth of payroll. Right? So that's how my mind works, and that's how we're able to hold people accountable. And it's not like you suck meetings every check in, check up, check out. It's not about you're not getting your job done. It's like, okay, you didn't have a customer, you didn't go on a test drive, you didn't get in a write-up, and you spent 3 full hours. What did you do for 3 hours? Okay, 2 cat videos, excellent. Don't do 4, you can only do 2. I need to make sure in those 3 hours that you've done X, Y, and Z, and then watch your cat videos, right? That's the kind of way I see us being in this industry. Being able to hold people accountable is just give them the information and see how they rate against their peers. And you'll find that nobody wants to be at the bottom of any list that you create. And that's how we're doing it at Hansel.
Hey, David, and think about all the added benefits there. When you hold people, everybody knows that your best buddy manager will let you go broke, and a guy that's tough on you will let you feed your family. If you hold people accountable, they feel like they're part of the structure. They see that you care, and by holding them accountable, they're going to make more money, so you're going to make more money. Seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, great.
So friends love us the way we are. Real good leaders love us too much to keep us the way we are.
Interesting. Love that one. Mr. Shawn, what do you think?
I need to echo what David was saying as well as George. David, that's quite interesting about split your days in three. I kind of learned that one through Ed Milet, so I have the same kind of thought process when I'm working with my dealer groups. Peter had mentioned also in the chat, focus. Absolutely. I think we have to be strategically patient with a high sense of urgency. So I would break that down into three, just the three things that come to mind. I think moving forward, because in my line of work, more so than a vendor, I create relationships with my dealer groups. So, when they fail, I fail. And when I fail, they fail. And that's the mentality that I use. I'm not just a vendor, and I'm not just going to come in with surface level stuff. So I already had strategic meetings with all of my dealer groups with regards to the BDC, but I guess my cup of tea is really aligning the BDC with the departments that they serve. I'm trying to knock down these silos that the BDC is just this customer service group or this customer service department in the back of the dealership in an old closet, right? So I'm trying to interject, a path of legitimacy to the BDC as a legitimate business unit. And the only way to do that is to align the BDC initiatives with the departments they serve. So currently right now, from a strategic meeting I just had yesterday, as I was telling one of my general managers that I feel that we need to be a lot more focused. So similar to what Peter was saying with regards to the focus, we need to be a lot more focused on our trajectory as opposed to the results. If we're really in tuned with the trajectory and the managers, as David said before, I'm not sure who it was, but I think it was George, about not knowing, are they surfing on Facebook or what they're doing? Well, what is their trajectory? And like David said, break it down into daily segments as opposed to, you can have, my mentor used to say, you can have a bad day, but you don't have to have a bad week, right? So I would surgically dial into my data metrics. The second thing that I would do is I would take advantage of the last year of all of these profits that we've made off the cars. And I've learned this concept called circular economics. So I would actually take advantage of the profits and re-inject the profits into coaching and training. The money is there for sure, 100%. And the third thing is, I think, with such an unstable ecosystem at the moment, I feel that moving forward, what would be most efficient and sustainable method would be to cultivate more leaders within our ranks as opposed to more managers, right? They're both equally important, but there's a distinction between the two. I believe that by empowering our individuals, I fundamentally believe that we'll have a significant impact moving forward.
Thanks for that. Sandy.
Thanks, Ian. I'm really enjoying the call as usual. I always enjoy these calls. And I might piss a couple of people off right now.
No.
And that's to say that hopefully, because I don't disagree at all when there are unacceptable behaviors happening in the workplace, they need to be addressed. However, I have a belief that accountability starts at home, right? So kind of like what Shawn just said, if my team is failing, that means I've failed. So I guess what I would caution is if you have underperforming salespeople because of all the things that everybody's talking about, right? First, accept responsibility for accepting that behavior throughout this time and not keeping your people on track, right? And look at those behaviors one at a time, explain why that's not good for the organization, and here's what we need to see, right? Set SMART goals, goals that are achievable and have a time limit on them, and document it, right? I'm going to say document it. I tell you what, my worst nightmare is actually and it's probably not Larry, right? My worst nightmare is when a manager comes to me and says, I'm ready to let this person go. And I'm like, great. Have you addressed the behaviors or the lack of performance before? Or is this a big surprise? One thing I will say is that a termination should very rarely be a surprise to the employee who is being terminated. They should know that next meeting, God darn it, man, I didn't hit those goals, right? And they know what's coming. So that's what I'm gonna say. It's like, look at yourself first. And then take it, and do those things like David does. I've heard David talk about the things that he does with his team throughout the pandemic, right? So the dealers who haven't been doing that have some catch up to do. So do the catch up before your employees feel the consequences, right? It costs less to do that. And I'm just going to say what my resolution is because we're getting to there. And it's to bring back Dance Break Wednesday.
Just so you know, Sandy, we've submitted a formal request at NADA that you are to be required to go up and dance at every single evening on stage.
And Jeff, any final thoughts?
Put me on the stage.
There you go.
Run up.
Nice shirt, Sean. Yeah. Oh, we'll do it. It's in Texas. You got a line dance, baby.
It won't be a country line dance, though. We'll do a Cuban line dance.
Oh, I don't know. We could do it. We could do in the middle. We could do like Shivers, where everybody's line dancing to. Who would ever thought Ed Sheeran would be a line dance guy? Anyways, folks, we're kind of getting late in the show, and we try to keep it at a reasonable thing. And we can't touch on everybody's New Year's resolution unless in their final comments. Just to say goodbye, we'll ask everybody for their quick resolution. Sandy gave that to us, and so dance is on everybody's thing. Sean, final comments in your 2023 resolution.
I will continue my body of work in the line of BDC and continue to, like I said before, interject a path of legitimacy to the BDC.
And the Executive Vice President, Mason Armorer,
Of course.
George.
Stay away from negatives. I started that last year. I actually fired an account last year just because it was a negative. I just keep every negative I can from my personal life and my business life out of my life. Have success that way. And I'd rather help 5 people who want help over 10 people that think they know what they need.
Great thoughts.
Very good point. I certainly am not above getting a little negative sometimes, but one of my favorite things I used to do with my staff was say, tell me one thing positive. And you go around the room and it was crickets. Tell me one thing negative. So thank you. Very good point. Thank you for being here. Let me see, Sean and Sandy and David had to leave. Anybody else? Gail, Larry, Peter?
Well,
David's back.
I'd like to basically include transparency and communication between everybody that you deal with. If you do not have transparency, people think that an agenda is being hidden, and it creates the negativity right off the bat. Work with, as my father said a long time ago, said, respect and trust are given immediately, and integrity is held by you. And if you lose that on any level, it's near impossible to gain back. So keep the conversations open, keep the transparency clear, and you'll move forward with absolute success in the future.
Thanks for that.
Thank you.
David's back, so maybe he has a final comment for 2023, a resolution.
So I looked up the word resolution, means resolve, obviously.
Yeah.
And it talked about moving firmly in a direction, like not being wishy-washy, being completely bought in and ready to go. And that's, my word for the year is health, but my resolution is to whatever I'm doing, do it with my whole heart, completely present, focused, know the desired outcome, and then work to my best to make that happen. Those are my sort of resolutions and word for 2023.
Thanks for that. Larry, any thoughts for 2023 resolution-wise?
My resolution is to make myself better, make the people around me better, and to have fun.
Fantastic. Mine is to help as many people as I can, which is pretty much our resolution all the time. That's what I like to do. And Jeff, I'll leave it to you to close out with your resolution.
Well, my resolution is to be kinder and gentler and have a lot more fun because something, fun seems to be infectious. And Larry says he has fun, and if you watch him in his sessions, it's fun. We we talk about our sponsors, Gail with her the Basset Hound. She's going to do a new video soon, and we told you got to keep the Basset Hound because it's fun. Sandy has fun. Everybody, thank you so very much for joining us in our first show of the year. It was great. I may reach out to you for our 2023 end of year show to see where it all panned out. So thank you very much. Have a great year. Have a great week, and we will see you all next week.
And AD, if you're there, we will be there live. So we'll look forward.
Thanks, everyone. See you.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a great day.
Yes.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. It was a great show, and follow us anywhere you would like on your favorite podcast, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and of course on our YouTube, or subscribe to our own channel.